Good afternoon. Welcome to our first view from the top of the fall semester. This series gives the college community a chance to hear from the best of today's business leaders and technology visionaries. I'd like to thank the Career Center at Berkeley, the chapters of Eta Kappa Nu, and the Computer Science Undergraduate Association for co-sponsoring today's lecture. And I think we have representatives from Eta Kappa Nu and CSUA. Are you folks around? There you are. Very good. Thank you. I'm also delighted to see a large number of students in the audience. I'm also honored to welcome alumni and members of the Dean's Society who are joining us today. The loyalty and support of our alumni and other friends of the college play a key role in advancing the mission of educating leaders, creating knowledge, and serving society. Before I introduce our speaker this afternoon, I invite you to mark your calendars for another very special event coming to the college. On Wednesday, October 16th, we'll host a Regents lecture in Banatao Auditorium next door with a very special guest and a three-time College of Engineering alumnus, which means all his degrees are from here, the CEO of Qualcomm, Paul Jacobs. By the way, when they do these counts of CEOs with degrees from Berkeley, Paul gets counted 3 times. Please check the college's website, coe.berkeley.edu, for complete details. Okay, so today's guest, of course, needs very little by way of introduction. Jack Dorsey is one of the most well-known leaders in business and technology today. He has created not one, but 2 of today's most fascinating, most disruptive technology brands. In 2006, he co-founded and served as the founding CEO of Twitter, which has evolved into a major platform for breaking news, as well as a key tool for politicians, nonprofit causes, and the revolutionaries of the Arab Spring. Needless to say, we use it in our classes as well, so thank you, Jack. In 2009, he co-founded Square, where he's also the CEO. Square lets anyone accept credit card transactions using a small square card plugged into a wireless device. It has already improved the business of millions of small-scale entrepreneurs. More than 1 million small businesses and individuals use Square to process credit cards. In 2012, the Wall Street Journal named Jack Dorsey its Technology Innovator of the Year. He has been recognized as one of Time Magazine's 100 most influential people and was named an outstanding innovator under the age of 35 by MIT's Technology Review. Please give a warm welcome to our speaker, Jack Dorsey.
Thanks for having me. Is this on? We're all good? Okay. Thanks for having me. Berkeley was my home for a very long time. When I first moved to San Francisco from New York, I looked at San Francisco and I said, this isn't like New York at all, so I'm going to go to a town instead. And I moved over across the bay and I went to Berkeley and I lived on University in San Pablo for a little while. And then I moved up to Virginia in Sacramento, and then moved around Novia. But during that time, I was always around this campus. This campus was an inspiration to me. In fact, I tried to sneak into a lot of the classes here. Not actually going here because I unfortunately dropped out of school. But there's a magic energy in this campus that pervades through the entire city. And it's an energy of creation, it's an energy of revolution, and it's an energy of a lot of amazing, amazing thinking that has always inspired me and I wanted to be close to. So thank you all for continuing this great institution, first of all. I wanted to talk a little bit about a lot of my left turns on how I got here, how I got to this particular stage. And some of them add up, some of them don't really make sense whatsoever. So I want to start with my founding story. These are my parents, and this is Tim and Marcia. And my parents have one of the best stories of meeting each other I think I've ever heard. My father, when he was 19 years old, loved making pizza. He loved just cooking pizza. And so did his best friend, Ron. And they decided that they wanted to do it as a living. They wanted to make sure that they could do it every single day. So they started a pizza restaurant, and they called it Two Nice Guys. And they were two best friends. They were two very nice guys. And my father had the Tim's Special, which was an all-meat pizza. I don't think there was any cheese or even sauce on it. It was just all meat. And neither one of them did it because they wanted to start a company. They did it because it's what they were passionate about. It's something they loved doing every single day of their life. And little by little, the company started growing, and more pizza, more and more people ate the pizza and started being very, very successful, and they needed help. And along the way, they decided that they wanted to preserve their friendship. They also wanted to preserve the business. So they needed one rule between them, and that rule was they would not date the waitstaff. And the first person they hired was my mother. My father fell in love with my mother and went to his best friend and said, "I'm sorry I broke the rule, the business is yours." And I was born 10 months after that. So that's my founding story. Includes entrepreneurship, but it doesn't necessarily include the desire to start a company. It includes a desire to do something that you love. And love also comes out of that. So that was one of my biggest lessons. When I was a kid, I also did not want to be an entrepreneur. I didn't want to start a company. I was fascinated by the world. I wanted to learn everything about it. The way this manifested for me was sailing. I wanted to sail around the world. My parents got me this book called The Dove, which is about Robert Graham, who was a 21-year-old who sailed around the world in a 21-foot boat by himself. I just thought that was so cool, and I wanted to do the same thing. And the problem was, I was in St. Louis, Missouri. There's no oceans in St. Louis. The only access to the oceans is through the Mississippi River. Not a lot of people sail down. But eventually, my parents brought me to reservoirs, and I could actually try out sailing, and I fell in love with it. The other thing that I appreciated were artists. My mother used to paint and draw a lot, and she took me to the art museum all the time, where I took a lot of art lessons. Started by drawing faces, and the folks that I was really inspired by and always curious about were the surrealists. The fact that they saw the world in a completely different way, it didn't make any sense in how I saw the world in a realistic standpoint, but there was something there. There was something that really resonated, something very mysterious. And throughout my life, I've always appreciated just a different take, because they see the world in a very, very unique setting. And it, just looking at how they paint that, how they photograph it, how they see it, made me rethink a lot of my concepts. And it's something that I also wanted to do. So not only see the world, but also frame it in such a way that maybe people see it slightly differently, see it in something that's new. I was fascinated by cities. My parents lived in St. Louis, Missouri. They stayed in St. Louis, Missouri. St. Louis, Missouri, if any of you have ever been, has really been hit hard. It was hit hard in the 40s and 50s by a lot of people moving out to the suburbs. It destroyed the downtown. The metropolitan area has about 4 million people. The city itself only has about 350,000 living in it today. It's extremely segregated along north-south lines. It's the homicide capital of the country right now. Also has the highest number of Catholic churches per capita in the country, 4-way stop signs, gyms, and also fast food restaurants. So it's this weird little collection of all these different directions, but my parents stuck by it. They love the city, they love the downtown, and I developed a fascination for the same. And the way this manifested for me was through maps, and looking at maps and wondering what was happening in this particular area, or what was happening in this particular intersection. It was a way to satisfy some of my curiosity, because we didn't travel a lot when I was a kid. Satisfy my curiosity around the world, because I could actually see it. I could see the streets. I could see New York. I could see San Francisco, which were 2 cities, and Tokyo, which were 3 cities I was fascinated by. But I was in St. Louis, and that's where I had to explore. So explore I did. The interesting thing about St. Louis that not a lot of people know about is there's this natural network of caves underneath the city. And the reason that all the beer brewers came to St. Louis is because they discovered these caves. So Anheuser-Busch was the first, and they saw like, hey, there's all these caves under the city, and they're connected to the river. And during the winter, they would take ice from the river and they would put them in the caves, and they had free refrigeration for their beer. It was perfect. So other brewers started as well, and there was a brewer called Lemp right next to Anheuser-Busch, and they actually lived next to each other as well. I had to get into the caves. I thought the caves were so cool. So I started researching, how do I get into these caves? And I found this house. This is the Demonil Mansion. And this is a little tiny mansion by mansion standards in St. Louis that was originally built in 1750 and then had this Greek revival addition to it in 1823. And it became a museum. And I went to take a tour. And I was 14 years old at the time, and I took a tour of this Demonil Mansion. And it was a 2-hour tour given by a 80-year-old woman. And, we would stop and she would tell us, so the women of the time, they wore wax makeup, and with the humidity of St. Louis, the wax would melt off. Sometimes when they sat in front of the fire, the wax would melt off. And here's the thing that they used to keep the makeup from melting off. And I said, that's awesome, but when are the caves? Like, where can we get access to the caves? And she said, in a minute. And we kept going around and around and like, there are no caves. So finally, we get to the end of the tour. She's like, thank you very much. Please come back and visit us. And I said, what about the caves? She's like, caves aren't part of the tour. I'm like, I just spent 2 hours with you, and you didn't tell me the caves weren't part of the tour. And she said, well, I'm sorry. And I said, if you work here, do you get to see the caves? And she said, yes. So a week later, I joined the Demonil Mansion. It wasn't a job. I was actually a docent, which means a volunteer tour guide. And I learned my 2-hour spiel about why women had to put a fire screen in front of them so the makeup would not drop down. And I was the only one under 60 years old doing this. And this was my Saturday and my Sunday, right? This was from 9 a.m. until 6 p.m. every Saturday, every Sunday. I was giving tours for 2 hours of this mansion. And then about a month later, I finally got the nerve up. Okay, I've been here for a month. Can I please go see the caves? And she said, we don't have access to the caves. I'm sorry. Next door, however, was Lemp Mansion. Lemp Mansion was the mansion the Lemp family lived in, which is the competing brewer to Anheuser-Busch. And Anheuser-Busch during Prohibition did something very smart. They started making pretzels and soft drinks. They didn't sell beer, obviously. They had no revenue from alcohol anymore, so they survived by making pretzels and soft drinks. The Lemp family, they just started killing themselves. Literally, they all committed suicide. And they all committed suicide in the house next to this house, the Lemp Mansion. So the Lemp Mansion became a bed and breakfast and a restaurant that serves fried chicken. And I heard that this restaurant also had access to the caves. Not only did it have access to the caves, but the Lemps were so crazy that they built ballrooms and theaters and bedrooms and studies all underground, all connecting to the brewery as well. So I quickly shifted from the Demonil Mansion and became a busboy at the Lemp Mansion. I finally got to see the cave, but it was only 5 feet of the cave because the cave became so dangerous that they closed the whole thing off. So again, I really didn't get to see part of the city. So I took a completely different turn at this point, and I got into something which was called punk rock. And punk rock was huge in St. Louis. There were two really big movements in St. Louis. One was punk, and the other was actually hacking. So how many of you are familiar with Frack magazine? Or 2600? It's Square employees that are familiar with it. So this says a lot. FRAC were these e-zines that were put out over usually IRC and FTP. St. Louis had this huge hacking culture because we had Southwestern Bell there. When AT&T broke up, we had a big part of the infrastructure right in St. Louis, Missouri. We also had McDonnell Douglas there, which was a big part of the early internet. And we also had Washington University there. We had all these BBSs as well. So my first introduction to the internet was through a BBS called Hobbit BBS, which had a connection to WashU, which got me into Gopher and then IRC as well. And one of the things that I found there, like punk rock at the time, was that there are all these people who are actually sharing code. And there was a movement happening called open source. And the leader of that movement at the time was a man named Linus Torvalds. And he did this amazing thing where he decided one day that I want to write an operating system. And not only do I want to write it, I want to give it away so that other people can help me write it as well. So that was my first real introduction to programming and really learning programming from others. And what's interesting about punk was it had the exact same approach. In punk rock, the thing I loved about it is that anyone could pick up a guitar, anyone can get up on stage, and anyone could start a band and they could start playing. And they're not learning in the back room, they're actually learning in public. So people would get up on stage and actually play the songs that they were trying to write at the same time. And oftentimes they would get booed off stage, but then they would come back the next week and they'd come back the next week and the week after that, and suddenly they had a record. And you could actually watch them grow and watch them mature and actually watch them find their rhythm and their groove right in front of you. And I saw the same with open source, and it just meant so much to me. Both the attitude of rebelliousness, both in open source and also in punk rock, but this amazing desire to share, an amazing desire to teach each other at the same time. It's been a very big lesson in my life. But I was still fascinated by cities, and where that fascination really manifested next was around an extension of punk rock, which a lot of punk rock people were actually bike couriers. And Berkeley, San Francisco, New York, and Toronto were the cities that you wanted to be a bike courier in, because each one of those cities, and Seattle, had 15-minute delivery. So you had these like really tough, amazing people who would ride fixies and deliver a package within 15 minutes. And the coolest thing they were doing, to me, was reporting constantly where they were, what they were doing, and where they were going. Right? Very simple thing. And you could actually see them if you listened enough. You could see them and write software to actually track them. And that's exactly what I wanted to do. So when I was about 16, I actually had a full dispatch system. It was a fake dispatch system. It was built so that I could actually listen to my parents' police scanner, listen to my parents' CB radio. I could type in what I heard. Ambulance is at 5th and Broadway going to St. John's Mercy, patient cardiac arrest, and I could actually simulate the ambulance. And I just thought this was the coolest thing ever because I could actually see the city. I could see it work. At one point, I tried to put my little brother, Danny, on a bike and tried to make him to be a bike courier. Turned out that St. Louis has no need for bike couriers or package delivery, so that completely failed. But I still believed in the concept. I still believed in this ability to just see the world and see specifically my city. I kept doing a lot of this work. I joined a major firm in New York called DMS, which was the biggest dispatch firm in the world. We moved to San Francisco. I moved to Berkeley, and we started a company called DNet, which was a complete and utter failure. We hired a CEO to run the company, and we hired a bunch of salespeople. Not that there's anything wrong with salespeople, but we only had 5 engineers, and they were all in Montreal, and I moved to Montreal to manage them. And it was just a disaster, and the company folded. And this was around 1999, 2000. After that, I went into contracting. I did a lot of stuff for my dad's new company. I did some things for medical devices, and eventually did something for this company called Blue and Gold Fleet in San Francisco that did the tours to Alcatraz. I wrote their ticketing system. But little by little, my wrist started hurting. And I got all these pains, and I was fearful that I was developing carpal tunnel, so I started asking my friends here in Berkeley, what should I do? And they said, you should get a massage. You should go get a massage, because it works. And I said, well, that's interesting. But I'm not someone who just goes to get the massage. I want to learn how to give massages. And I moved back to St. Louis at this time, and I decided I'm not just going to get a massage, but I'm going to become a massage therapist. So I enrolled myself into the Healing Arts Center in St. Louis, and I took 1,000 hours of massage therapy. And I'm a licensed therapist, only in Missouri, fortunately. And I was actually going to dedicate my life to it. I was fed up with technology because as an engineer, as a programmer, you're always kind of stuck in your head, and there's this abstraction, and you miss out on the tangibility, the tactical things. And I always appreciated building with my hands and working with my hands and doing something that I could feel with my hands. And I missed that. Massage gave me that. So I thought I had the brilliant idea. I was about ready to move back to San Francisco in 2005. Thought I had the best idea ever. My idea was that I would go out to California and I would do chair massage for programmers. And while I was massaging their shoulders and their wrists and whatnot, I would also give them advice on their code. So it was not only massage therapy, it was code therapy. And I thought this was the best idea ever. I started telling people my idea, and they're like, that is the stupidest thing I've ever heard of. When I'm getting a massage, I do not want to talk about programming. I said, no, just give it a chance, give it a chance. And then I moved to San Francisco again, and actually moved to Rockridge on Colby and Alcatraz. And I realized, whoa, everyone here is a massage therapist. There's no way I can compete. So I went back to programming. I joined a company called Riverbed, which did very low-level, high-latency stuff that allowed you to speed up your network. It was about for 3 months. I didn't really like it because I wanted to do something that was more direct, something my mom could see immediately. And I found this company called Audio, which was a podcasting company, and I could care less about podcasting. I didn't really know what it was, but I really liked the people running the company. I really liked the people in the company. And I decided to send my resume, and then I quickly learned as soon as I had my first interview that no one else in the company really cared about podcasting either. And that was one of Audio's biggest failures, is we actually were not building tools for us. We're not building tools for who we were. We're building tools for other people. And we didn't even use the tools all that often. We didn't like making podcasts. We liked consuming a lot of them, but we didn't like making them. Yet we were making the system that allowed you to record from the web and do all these things. So it was a little bit of a depressing time, but what was really cool about the company is there are all these great people who I loved working with. And that created this environment where any idea could thrive. And one of those ideas became Twitter. And a lot of folks, assume that Twitter is these three guys and this green deer behind me. But it actually was so much more. It was a very simple idea. And why did we build it? We weren't solving any problem. Twitter solves no one's problem at all. It was something we wanted to use. It was something that we wanted to see in the world. It's something that we wanted to use on a daily basis. And that's all that drove us. That's what got us up every single morning. And that's what made it meaningful. And it resonated with other people. And that, I think, is one of the biggest lessons I learned, is Twitter did not start as a company. Twitter started as a product within another company that was failing. And to me, this really emphasized the fact that entrepreneurship is not necessarily starting something new, starting a new company. It's actually just taking significant risk in order to build what you want to see in the world, right? And you can do that anywhere. You can do that by starting something new. You can do that by starting a company, but you can also do it within your organization. You can do it within this school. You can do it by joining any company as well, as long as the company is open to that, as long as the company really accepts that. So Square had a very, very different founding story. We were actually solving a problem. We were solving a problem that our co-founder, Jim McKelvey, had. He is a glass artist. He was selling a piece of glass art, and he couldn't make one sale because he couldn't accept a credit card. We thought, that's really interesting. He called me one day. He's like, Jack, I lost this sale because I couldn't accept a credit card. Do you think we could do it from my phone? I said, well, I don't know. I don't know if that's something we want to work on. Like, why do we want to persist credit cards? I had, a lot of credit card debt at the time. I wasn't in the best financial shape, and some of that I blamed on the usage of the credit card and just how easy that was. And like, do we actually want to persist this in the world? Do we want to put more of this plastic in the world? And what we realized was that people weren't carrying cash anymore. They weren't carrying their checkbooks around. They were carrying plastic cards, and there were healthy mediums as well, like debit cards or prepaid cards or gift cards. It wasn't just about unsecured lines of credit that these banks would give you and then just push you on your merry way and hope that you carry a major balance so that they can get an interest payment. So there was actually something that people wanted to do, and it was from a buyer perspective as well. And that's what led us to starting Square. We decided that we would figure out how to build that. We would take a month and we would answer that question. So what did we need to solve first? This is what we were up against. You all have seen these. These are terminals that you come into contact with every day, hopefully less and less because Square is growing more and more. But look at this. I mean, this is something that really isn't built for humans. These are things that people have to put up with that get in your way. I mean, look at this one. It's in my way. It doesn't allow me to actually have a conversation, have a human connection with the driver that I'm paying. And that's exactly what commerce is. It's just activity between buyer and seller. But you have all these mechanical aspects that get in the way of that. So we decided that we would solve three things. Number one is that we would make it easy for anyone to use whatever they have, the device they're already carrying around in their pocket, which is their mobile phone, to accept a card. And to do that, we needed to build a little tiny device that made it a little bit better. And that's where the Square Reader came from. Number two is we would get people in the door immediately. So a lot of these folks who have these terminals, they have to go through a credit check, which makes no sense to them because people are giving them money. Why do you need to do a credit check on me? Right? I'm not spending unsecured credit, unsecured lines of money. People are giving me money. But this is the only tool the financial industry had to vet identity and to authorize people were going to be good actors instead of risky actors. So we changed that by saying, well, we want something that you can download, and within minutes, you can actually start accepting credit cards, and just a swipe of a card, it goes into your bank account the very next day. The third thing we did is once the merchant is in, they typically face what's called the interchange, which varies anywhere from 1.79% all the way up to 10% to accept cards, right? And what actually changes that price? The card the buyer uses. So if you use a normal credit card that's lightly branded at the coffee store around the corner, that's not using Square, they may be paying 2% to accept that payment. If you use a card with rewards on it, like miles, flight miles, they might be paying 5 to 6% to accept that card. If you use a corporate card, they might be paying 5 or 6%. And guess what? The merchant has no idea what they're paying. They don't find out until 30 days later when the banks come in and take their money and take those fees out. And at the same time, that merchant typically doesn't have enough money to cover those fees, so they get charged an overdraft as well. Now, this is terrible for every small merchant that live and die by these small amounts of income to actually start building something. So all of these three things came into one solution, which we called Square, and which became Square Register. Use the device people already know how to use, which is their phone, in this case an iPad, something they're familiar with. Add a little bit, which is the Square Reader, and then suddenly they have this new superpower where they could start accepting credit cards. But we didn't want to stop there because we actually learned from the people using the system that it wasn't just about the credit card terminal. It was actually about running their business as well. And this is what you see in most mom and pop stores around the country. You see a cash register that was usually bought at Costco that is effectively a calculator on top of a cash box, right? That's all it is, right? And if you ask them the question, how many cappuccinos did you sell today? They'll have no idea. Most of them know if they're actually counting the number of cups coming out of the dishwasher, or if their paper cups are low and they have to buy new ones. That's how they know about their business. This seems ridiculous to us because we're familiar with the web. We take this for granted. We have rich analytics. Rich analytics are not on offline commerce. They have no sense of what their busiest day is. They have no sense of what their busiest hour is. They have no idea what happens when they move the biscotti jar to the other end of the store. This is all information that's easy if you build it all together, if you build it into one system. And that's exactly what we did with the Register product, but also we wanted to make it a little bit more real with a stand. Something that people didn't have to compromise around, something that people were really proud to put on their counter. We also didn't want to stop there. We wanted to make sure that people who were selling around the neighborhood could also sell anywhere in the country. So as you start using Square Register for your offline business, you can flip a switch for any of your items, and suddenly we build you a web page, and you can sell online as well. You can tweet it out. You can put it on Facebook. You can put it on Pinterest. And suddenly, not only do you have the people coming into your store around the neighborhood, but also anyone across the country can purchase. And it increases the amount of commerce that you potentially have in the world. We realized more and more that it wasn't just about the seller experience, though, it was really about buyers. What do sellers need? They need to be found. They need a directory. They need to be seen. But they also want a great experience around their store. And they put so much effort into really curating that experience in their store. Oftentimes, payments makes it hard. It distracts from it. It also makes them compromise. So we wanted to build a technology that allowed someone to walk in, a buyer, a customer, to walk into their store and say, I'd like a cappuccino, and just put it on Jack. And then take that cappuccino and then just walk out. It should feel like you didn't even pay. It should feel very natural. The technology should completely fade away. And that's why we built Square Wallet. So Square Wallet is a technology that if you download it, and you can download it right now, if you download it, you link your credit card once, and you open it up, and you see all these merchants around. And they're all Square merchants. And a lot of them you can open up, and you can say, I want to pay hands-free. So you set that, you put your phone in your pocket, you put your phone in your bag, you walk up to the store, and as you're walking up, your name and your face actually appears on the register, right? And then you can walk up to the counter and you can say, you know, I'd like a cappuccino and a biscotti. And they say, how would you like to pay? You just put it on Jack. They find your name, they find your picture. Please don't put it on me. Find your name and your picture, and then they give it to you and you walk away. And as you're walking out, you get a push notification asking if you want to tip, right? So you don't have to bring out your phone. You don't have to bring out your wallet. You just go and you pay with your presence. It's like having a tab open with the world, right? And we do this by geolocation. Technology has improved. The register knows where it is. The wallet knows where it is. If they're next to each other, open a payment intent, right? And that's what's so cool about what we can do with technology. One of the things we love is this concept of currency. Currency is a really beautiful concept. You know, it's something that transfers between two people. And you know, I know you all have seen those dollar tracking projects where you can actually track a dollar around the country or potentially around the world, everywhere it's been. But it's a really beautiful concept because it does link to humanity. It shows the tangibility of that conversation. So we are a company that may look like we want to kill cash, may look like we want everything to move to credit cards, but that's not our intention. Our intention is any form of payment that comes over the counter, the merchant should be able to accept it, right? Because that means they always make the sale, and that means the buyer always gets what they want. And that's what's truly important to us. So in that, we don't want to kill cash. We also want to make it better. We want to make the sense of paying each other, which we think cash is very valuable for, even easier using technology. So we built a very, very cool technology called Square Cash, which we're about to really release in the public, although we have invite-only system right now. So if you want to participate in this, and there's a lot of reasons why you do. We have 4 Square employees right here. Ask them to send you $1 to $50. Okay? So just go up to them and ask you to send you money. Here's how it works. So this is a way to send money via email. So what you do is you link your debit card once, and then you can start any email client up. So if you have Gmail, if you have mail.app on your phone, if you're on the web, wherever you are, you to whoever you want to send money to, I would suggest sending money to your parents. CC cash@square.com. Put in an amount in the subject line, like $1. Just send it to your mom or your dad or to both of them. And then you can put anything in the body. And when your parents receive this email, they'll receive the email from you. But since you've CC'd Square, they're also going to get an email from Square saying that Jack just sent you money. Click on this button. You click on the button, it opens a web page. You put in your they put in their debit card number, and then that money is pushed to their debit card. And now they can send you money. So it's really important to send your parents money, because then they can send you money through email, which then you can use everywhere. You can take that money out because it's a debit card. You can use it at the campus store if it has a Visa or MasterCard or Discover logo on it and works like a credit card. You can use it anywhere. So we think this is awesome because there's never been a faster way to send money around. 50 cents to send and then free to receive. So very, very, very interesting. What we believe in Square and how we think about building the company, we've learned a lot from the Golden Gate Bridge. Obviously, all of you have been over the Golden Gate Bridge. One of the things that always strikes me is just every time you come out of those Sausalito tunnels, how much it takes your breath away. And if you think about what a bridge's job in the world is, a bridge has one job, which is to get people from point A to point B and not fall down, right? That's its job, point A to point B. And when a bridge does its job very well, it disappears, because most people are just thinking about point B. This is what I'm doing tonight. I'm so excited about getting into work. This is what I just left. This is what I have in store for me at home. I have this package waiting for me on my desk. I can't wait. The bridge completely disappears, right? But some bridges like this one are so well done and so stunning that they just take your breath away. They don't disappear because it's a joy and a delight to go over it. It's a joy and a delight to go from point A to point B. So we think about Square in very similar ways. We also have a mission of getting money from point A to point B. If we go down, if we have any confusing points, if we have any issues, then people are thinking about our issues, our problems, instead of why they came to Square for, which is to transact, to sell, or to buy. And if we're doing that, we're putting our problems before our customers, and that's just rude and selfish, and we don't want to be rude or selfish in the world. The other thing that's amazing to us about this bridge is not just the audacity of building it in the first place. This was built starting in 1933, but the audacity of how they built it. They built it with 1,300 people, very, very small team. They built it with $33 million of 1934 money, which is under budget. They were expecting it to be 50. They built it in 3 years. They were expecting to build it in 5 years. Under budget, ahead of time, only 1,300 people, right? The power of small teams is immense. This bridge has stood for 76 years, and it is iconic. Whenever someone says the word San Francisco, people think about this, no matter where you are in the world, right? Can we build technologies like that? Can we build technologies that are so iconic, that are so instrumental, that have such an important job in the world that people remember them, that people spread them, that people talk about them? Our mission at Square is to make commerce easy. We love this mission because of its simplicity, but also because every single word tells. Make really references what we love about the bridge, this idea of craftsmanship, pride in work. You know, it's not just about the end product, not just about the bridge itself, but also how they did it and how amazing and challenging that was, and everything they overcame to do that. Commerce, because it's not a payments company, it's really conversational. Commerce The definition of it is the activity between buyers and sellers. And then easy, because we constantly want to raise the bar and make it easier and easier and easier, right? Simpler and simpler and simpler. Why? What is the results of achieving this mission? We give time back to people, right? We want to make sure that if payments is easy, if commerce is easy, if they don't have to think about the mechanics, they don't have to think about going through this process just to start accepting credit cards or going through a process to pay for something that they want, they can actually focus their attention on something more meaningful to them, right? And that is truly meaningful for us in the world. That is a solid, solid purpose. That is something that we are very, very proud of. And we see it all the time. We hear this from our merchants, that Square has given me time back. And that resonates with us. We are a company of entrepreneurs building tools for other entrepreneurs. And this is also something that resonates deeply with us. We want to take that entrepreneurial focus and give it to people who are just starting, people who are just building, and people who are all over the world who are going through the same exact struggles that we went through when we were starting this company, the same exact struggles that we're currently going through. The number one thing that every single business has to do and has in a business, no matter if you're a Facebook, a Twitter, a Square, or the corner coffee shop, is you need to figure out how to get new customers to your service, to your place of business. You need to figure out how to retain those customers, right? So this is something that is fundamental. It's often captured to me in this quote by Steve McQueen. He only really said one good thing in the world in his lifetime, and this was it. When I believe in something, I fight like hell for it. This is a spirit of entrepreneurs. This is the spirit of the company that we want to build. And you don't have to start something new to do this. You can completely change the course of an organization, of a company that you already exist in or that you're joining, and do something massive with a platform that they've already built. I want to give one simple tool before we wrap up here. I'd like all of you to take out your phones or your laptops. Open up the notepad, your notes app, anything that you check every single day. This is a tool that has helped me a lot and helps our company think about focus. It's one of the hardest things to do. Open up the notepad, create a new note, and call it daily. Type daily. And then go down 2 lines and type do, colon. And then go down 2 lines and type don't, colon. So what you do with this is you write everything that you want to do every day. Right, so I want to do 30 push-ups every single day. I want to take a 5-mile walk every day. I want to run for 6 miles every day. I want to stand up straight. I want to drink 3 liters of water. And then the hardest one is actually the don'ts. This has been the hardest for me to actually fill out. So what don't you want to do every day? Right? I don't want to be late. I don't want to drink hard liquor on the weekdays. What I found is anytime I notice, I'm going through this paleo diet that I've been doing for a year, so I don't want to eat lentils or wheat or dairy, right? So every time I discover something that I've done that I don't want to do again, I just add it to the don't list. And the don't list keeps growing for me. And eventually it becomes a pattern that you just don't have to think about anymore because you've learned it. So this is a tool to help learn some of the patterns that you want to amplify and then diminish the ones that you don't. And why do I bring this up? It's because if you can do this as individuals, you can also do it as organizations. You can do it as teams. You can do it as a company. And this encourages focus. This encourages that focus on what's most meaningful to whatever you're trying to do in the world. So in order to do that as a team, in order to do that as a company, in order to do that as a movement, you have to be able to do it yourself. This has probably been the simplest and easiest tool for me to do that for myself. So I wanted to leave you with one quote, which is my favorite quote, which is by a guy named William Gibson. Do anyone know who William Gibson is? Again, only the Square employees. William Gibson wrote a book called Neuromancer. He's a science fiction writer, and he was the first one to coin the term cyberpunk and cyberspace. And a lot of companies in the first phase of internet companies actually used that book and Snow Crash as effectively their roadmaps. And he said something really, really compelling, which I always turn to, which is the future has already arrived. It's just not evenly distributed yet, which is an amazing thing to think about, right? The future is already in your head. It's in this room, and your job is to distribute it, to get it out of your head, to start talking about it with people, and then to build it. And again, you can build it by starting something new and by starting a new container, or you can build it by joining a company, or even in this organization where you are today. So thank you very much. Hopefully that was helpful, and hopefully we have some time for questions.
Just a few questions. So Jane and Michelle have microphones. Please use the microphones because we're recording.
Hi. First of all, thank you so much for being here. It was very interesting. I don't know, you probably are familiar with the Lean Launchpad idea. It's a program pioneered by Steve Blanks of Berkeley and Stanford. And I'm actually taking that course right now. The whole idea is don't try to think about your business plan for months in a small room. Just go out there and talk to people and ask them if they really want what you're doing. And I really was surprised when you said Twitter was not answering anybody's need. We just wanted it to be out there. And it's something that, with the business idea that I have to face every time that I talk to people and they're like, yeah, it's interesting, but my question is, would they really use it? So can you tell more? My question is this just once? Is just what you are the exception and Twitter managed to get out of the room? Or do you think that's, if you really believe it and if you think that there is a need, that could be more than just Twitter, the only exception that made it through? Thank you.
Yeah, I think it's a great question. I don't think it's unique to Twitter. And what I said is it wasn't solving a particular problem. It was solving a need. We wanted to see it. We wanted to use it, right? So I think every entrepreneur builds very selfishly. They build what they want to see in the world, what they want to use in the world, and they make a bet with the world that it resonates with other people, right? And sometimes you lose the bet, sometimes you win the bet. Sometimes you win the bet in big ways, sometimes you win the bet in very small ways, right? But they all add up. So like that Steve McQueen quote, when you believe in something, you fight like hell for it. So you do whatever it takes to learn whatever, this particular idea needs. And sometimes, it doesn't work out. I tried to build a predecessor to Twitter in 2001, and it was on my RIM 850 device, which was the predecessor to the BlackBerry email pager, and it was a simple email list that I could send an email and it would go out immediately to all my friends on this email list. And I quickly learned that no one else had a BlackBerry, a RIM 850, and also no one cared that I was in the bison paddock in Golden Gate Park. So it was just the wrong time and the wrong approach and the wrong team. So it wasn't no, put it on the shelf and then brought it back up and when I was working at Odeo, and it did work out. So I think entrepreneurs need to have that sense of invention, but also a very strong sense of patience. And that probably is the hardest attribute, is that sense of patience, because you get so excited about wanting to see it that you just get so frustrated when no one else wants to see the same thing. But maybe it's just the wrong time. So I would always advise building whatever you want to see in the world, showing it to people and seeing how it resonates. And you'll always learn. You'll always learn from that and always make it better.
Please identify
yourself. My question is, how did you build Twitter's early community? And what was its tipping point that eventually made it so ubiquitous? And I guess lastly, how did you get celebrities on it, like the first celebrities?
Well, we had a bunch of people from CAA that used to come to us and tell us that we should pay celebrities to use it. And that just felt wrong to us, so we said no. But there was no silver bullet that built a community. We used it, and then we invited our friends, and they used it. And then they invited their friends, and they used it. And this kept boiling and boiling up to a point where in 2007 there was a conference in Austin called South by Southwest. And all these influential bloggers and all these people who were presenting at that conference were using Twitter. And they said in their sessions, the only way you'll find out what sessions I'm attending and also what bars I'm going to later in the evening is to follow me on this thing called Twitter. And that was also the first South by Southwest that the press was at. So the New York Times was there and the Wall Street Journal was there. And that was a big moment where, you know, the journalists started getting on. And then the journalists started talking about it. And that led into 2008 when the presidential election happened. And then campaigns got on it. And then after that, all these celebrities started seeing, well, you know, all these, the election happened on this thing, and maybe I can use it to spread my message directly to people as well. So we saw that, and then we saw brands, and it's just been this blossoming. So we didn't do anything specific to address any of those audiences. We just kept using the technology and keeping it up.
Hi, thanks for coming again. So I think historically we see that the technologies, the new technologies that are implemented in society have like a direct effect of solving a problem, but also have implications that we don't expect. Like you talked about the Golden Gate Bridge. Obviously it got from San Francisco to Marin and back, but it's like a beautiful iconic feature of the city now, and I'm sure that that's happened with Twitter too. So I was asking like what kind of implications or what kind of outcomes have happened through Square that you guys didn't really perceive, and maybe how it'll affect like global currency standards moving on forward.
Well, that's a great question. We were having this conversation earlier, but I think the biggest issue facing civilization today is economic inequality and this massive gap between the very, very poor and the very, very rich. The erosion of the middle class in our society, in our country, but also places in particular like China, where this class is just disappearing. There's no gradation of economic equality. So where I think Square plays a part in that narrative is giving people the tools to quickly and easily change their destiny, build a company, start selling what they want to sell. Build a business or grow a business. And we think, you know, commerce is a big part of that. We think people having their own means and their own tools to doing something that they're truly passionate about will have an impact on that. So we had some unexpected uses of Square that I've really been inspired by. One is in healthcare. We saw all these doctors and all these nurses using Square to accept credit cards, and we thought that was so weird. Like, why are they accepting credit cards? You know, we have this whole insurance machinery. And one of the things that they said to us was, you know, I can go through all the mechanisms of the insurance industry, but I won't get paid for 6 months to a year after my treatment, right? So we don't think that doctors have to worry about the next payment, but they do. It's on their mind, like, when am I getting paid for this particular treatment? So they have them in their home office. They actually do house calls, and they swipe right there. And the patient actually has a lower cost, but also the doctor saves all this time. The money goes in their bank account the very next day. And for me as a patient, I would rather my doctor thinking about me as a patient rather than where's my money, right? Where's my next paycheck? Like, I have to deal with this whole insurance machinery. So, like, again, it gives time back. And like, we've seen this with so many of our sellers, with so many of our merchants, but that one in particular really inspired me in a way I wasn't thinking about before, because I just didn't really link the ease of commerce to an impact on health. But it has to do with that concept of giving time back, I believe.
Thanks again for coming out, Jack. I was wondering how you see Square's new service, Square Cash, differentiating itself from Venmo and other similar products.
It's a good question. So we wanted to build something that every single person could use. Anyone with an email address could use and receive immediately. And that was really the intention behind it. But also, you don't have to download an app. You have everything in your pocket you need to start, right? So you have a phone, you have an email address, and then you have a funding source, which is a card. So a lot of these other services have you link a bank account or a pre-fund, and there's a lot of mechanical things that happen. And this is just a start for us, and we're really excited about it. But we have to evolve it as well. So it's something that we want to make sure that fits into everyone's life, that degrades gracefully to everyone, and it's something that I think has really worked well for Twitter. The reason we have a 140-character limit is because we were trying to fit into 160 characters, which is the device constraint for a text message. So if you go over 160 characters, you're actually sending 2 text messages. A lot of people pay to receive their text, right? Also, sometimes Twitter paid to receive the text. So it just made sense that if we put it under 160 characters, we could send 1 text message. That means we could reach every single device on the planet, and it could always gracefully degrade to any device. So even a $5 cell phone shared between 20 people in the middle of Kenya could participate in a global conversation. So we don't want to build a technology necessarily that only people with $900 smartphones in their pocket can use. Right? We want to build a technology that everyone around the planet can use. And more people have email addresses. Everyone with a cell phone number, a text message number, has an email address. So that's where we're starting.
This will be the last question, so make it good.
Wow.
So one of the really interesting things that I've seen about Twitter is how it's had all these knock-on and unexpected effects around the world. I mean, in the Arab Spring, for instance. But I've noticed that with Square, you've sort of been very focused on the US, and we haven't seen much penetration into, emerging markets all around the world. And that, to me, seems to be where the largest arbitrage and, opportunities to really improve the status quo, where often you have money lenders and money changers and 100+% interest rates for simple transfers.
Yep.
Is the largest. I mean, why haven't you moved in that direction, in the way that some other players have?
Yeah, it's a great question. Services like Instagram or Facebook or Twitter or Vine, they can launch a product and the whole world can use it right away. And one of the things that we saw with Twitter and also with Vine and also with Instagram is that you start with English and the world puts up with it, right? And you see this growth. And then once you translate it, it has a hockey stick effect, right? Square does not have that luxury. We are moving money around, and moving money around comes with regulation. There's laws around how to move money around, and if people are doing it the right way, right? So it took us 9 months just to work through the regulation in this country, right? Just to launch a product. We had a technology working in a month. But it took 9 months to get through that regulation to actually launch it to more and more people and to make it unbounded. So as we get better at that, we can do that faster. But for every market that Square wants to go into, we need a banking relationship. We need to work with the local regulation. We have to put up a lot of just heavy stuff that a lot of other services don't have to do. So we're working as quickly as we can. But we also have limited resources, and we want to do it the right way, right? So we've gone to Canada, we've gone to Japan, because both markets we could learn a lot from and are learning a lot from. We're going to take all those lessons and try to shift them out to the rest of the world as well. But there might be products like Square Cash that leapfrog some of that, that can actually move a little bit faster than the card reader or the register product. Square Market might be one of those things that enables people around the world to use it as well. So really it's just a barrier of regulation, and we hope along the way that we are changing that, making that better for everyone, not just us, but for everyone, because we think more innovation will come from that as well, and that'll make us better too.
Well, thank you very much, Jack. And I hope you're pleased that so many of our Berkeley students are talking to you about the power of Square to do financial inclusion.
I love it.
I think this is the social message of Berkeley. So
Thank you. We'll pay you later. We'll include you financially later.
This, I think Square is going to do a lot for financial inclusion. So I think that the answers to all those questions are you're just doing it. This concludes our view from the top. Please join me in thanking Jack for joining us today. This is a really small token of our appreciation
so
for
much.
you.
Thank you.
I'd like you to open it, actually, so we could. This is to confirm your status as a Berkeley
Nice.
engineer.
Thank you so much. Thank you. Thank you. No, that's great.
I think Jack will be able to stay a few minutes for the reception.
Yeah.
I'd like to thank our co-sponsors, the Berkeley Career Center, Berkeley chapters of Ada Kappa Nu, and the Computer Science Undergraduate Association. I look forward to seeing you all October 16th, featuring Paul Jacobs. So goodbye and go Bears. Great talk. Great talk.
Thank you.
Get out of the way so soon. I've never seen somebody stay over.